Welcome to Beth's Happy Home. I hope that you are as excited about Thanksgiving as I am. It is truly my favorite holiday. But this year we have some crazy travel plans, and so it's going to be really busy right up to Thanksgiving, and so I wanted to get some things done ahead. And we can't have Thanksgiving without everybody's favorite pie, which is the razzleberry pie. And it turns out that it's easy to can razzleberry pie filling, but there are a few things that you need to know about. First of all, before you're canning it, if you're just going, you could freeze it, or if you're just going to put it straight into the pie, you don't need to worry about some of this. But for canning, these things are kind of important. The first thing is, if you're going to use a sugar substitute, you don't want to use a sugar substitute that is not heat stable. And that would be something like aspartame is not very stable, but sucralose stevia is up to about 400 degrees, and erythritol, which is a sugar alcohol, is heat stable as well. You're going to want to use about 1.5 times the erythritol that you would for sugar, because it's not as sweet as sugar is. But I'm not going to use a sugar substitute at all. I'm going to just use the full sugar recipe today. The second thing that you need to know is, if you're canning, you can't use cornstarch. You need to use clear gel, which is actually a type of cornstarch, but it has been treated so that it is very stable. It thickens as it cooks on the stove, and then it doesn't get thicker as it cools. It reaches the proper consistency, and that's not true of regular cornstarch. Regular cornstarch thickens, and then it gets thicker as it cools, and then when you go to use it, it doesn't necessarily melt down to that pleasant, creamy, smooth texture. Not creamy, but the smooth texture that you're gonna want in your fruit pies, and so you're going to get more of a gelatinous lumpiness from cornstarch. So don't scrimp. Go ahead and buy some clear gel if you're going to do that, if you're going to can your pie filling. And the third thing that you need to know is specific to razzleberry pie, and that is that you can use any combination of berries that you like, as long as you have some raspberries and some blackberries in there. You can fill out the rest of the poundage that you need with boysenberries, which that's the original recipe, calls for boysenberries, blackberries, and raspberries. Or you can use blueberries, or you can use strawberries, or you can use a combination of all of those berries. It doesn't matter, just use them the way that you like them. If you prefer, if blueberries are one of your favorites, go heavier on the blueberries. Today we're going to use almost equal parts with blackberries and blueberries, and then we're only using about 20% of the poundage is going to come from raspberries, and that's what I have on hand. We grew a lot of the blackberries that I'm going to be using, and so I've been saving them for this recipe, so I'm excited to cook with them. So I'm going to just show you how it's done, and it's actually really easy, and so we may as well get started. I will show the recipe again at the end of the video. So for now, we're going to put 6 cups of sugar into the pot, 2 cups of clear gel. So that's going to be right here. These are half-cup measures, but they fit into the container more readily. 1, 2, 3. This is like cornstarch. It feels like cornstarch, it tastes like cornstarch, but it's been treated. And if you see it on a package, it's going to be called modified food starch. And it's cornstarch that's been modified to be more consistent in the texture. So then we're going to add 7 cups of cold water. And you need that to dissolve the cornstarch just like you would, or the clear gel just like you would cornstarch. It needs to be cold. We'll stir those things together. And we're going to wait until this is all thickened on the heat before we start, before we add the lemon juice. And I'm going to add some vanilla as well. The recipe calls for cinnamon. I prefer vanilla. But it goes from being milky to being all transparent. Really important that you stir it constantly. Because now it's thickening on the bottom and you need to keep stirring in the liquidy top. So you're going to notice that this is thicker than what you're going to want your pie consistency to be. But don't worry about that. Once you mix in the berries, it'll be fine. Okay, that is done. I'm going to turn it off. Dump in my ½ a cup of bottled lemon juice, or you can use fresh if you want to ream it out, but get it ready beforehand. We'll stir it into this part. Then I'm going to add my vanilla. I want about a tablespoon. Stir that in. That's going to give that razzleberry pie that gourmet nuance that is so special and delicious. So the next thing is to stir in the berries. And I already have them all combined. And it's going to be a little bit of a project to get these completely stirred in. But you want them to be completely blended. And once they are, as you note, these were thawed, and you want them to be thawed, which is not true if you're just going to make it and put it directly into the pies. You can go ahead and use the some of the frozen berries in the pie, or in the filling that you add last. I think you add the raspberries last. And it's good to have them frozen because you have to cool your pie filling before you put it in your pie crust. Alright, this is well blended. We can go ahead and put it into the jars. Now you can do this, you can process this in a boiling water bath, or you can process it in a steam canner, or it can be pressure canned if you want to do it even faster, but make adjustments if you're at a high altitude. And hopefully you already know what your adjustments need to be, but when we lived at 7,500 feet, a recipe that called for 30 minutes of boiling water bath or steam canning, I would do for 45 minutes. I think that the rule of thumb is 2.5 minutes per 1,000 feet of elevation over 1,000 feet. So but if you're pressure canning it, you don't need to do it that long. I would bring it up to 5 pounds of pressure, hold it there for about 10 minutes, and that should do the job. This is so high sugar that you're not going to need to worry about spoilage, so it's going to be well preserved. Make sure that you allow 1.5 inches of headspace in each jar with this very thick mixture. That's really important. I'm realizing that I got some of these a little bit full, and that one isn't quite full enough. Then, once you have all your jars, all right, I've got these jars filled up. I added just a tablespoon or so of water on the top of each jar, just because they were a little bit scant, and it's very thick. And now I'm just mixing that water in a little bit and making sure that there are no air bubbles in the jar. The filling is so thick that there very well could be. So just push the knife down the edges of the pie filling, make sure that you get it, that there are no air bubbles. Once they are released all those air bubbles, take a clean paper towel and wipe every rim very carefully, and then put the lids on. I'm going to use these 2-piece lids. All right. I've got 2 quarts of water in here along with my canning rack, so that's ready to go. Truth be told, when you're using a pressure canner, the jars can be touching a little bit. You want to leave as much space. You want them evenly spaced, but if they're touching each other a little bit, it's not going to be a problem. So I've already checked the lid of my canner. I'm sure that the vent is open. I've shown the daylight through it, so I can see that it's open, and the rubber gasket is in good shape. I always check those before I can. Pop the lid down. I have the canner on high heat. As soon as this starts blowing steam consistently, I'll give it 5 minutes of blowing steam, and then I'll put my 10-pound weight on there. I'll bring you back when I have the finished product to show you. Alrighty, there's no more pressure left in this pressure cooker, so I can open the lid. And as you can see, even with all that headspace, it popped the lid on that one completely, and it pushed out some of the pie filling on those. So that is a cautionary tale. But it looks really pretty in the jar. Most of these look like they're okay. I assume that these that pushed out the top were too full. And you saw I left a lot of headspace, but they were still a little bit too full. This one completely boiled over. There are blueberries floating in this water right here. Here we go. I'm going to rinse that bottle off, and then I'll put it upside down. Any of these bottles that don't seal get to be used first on Thanksgiving.